Chief Moses was the last recognized chief of the Colville Indian tribe. Lucy Covington is his granddaughter. She spent most of her life ranching on the Colville Reservation in northern Washington, tending her cows and horses. They would be her life today, except she carries the blood of the chief, and her people are still fighting battles to retain their heritage, their home, and their land.
If Indian doesn't have land, he has nothing. That is home. And that's what God intended in the first place. Or Indian wouldn't be on this in the United States and North America. And it was not meant to be abused. You can't take everything off of the earth and expect it to be put back. You have to trade it off, take care of it. And same with the animals. And it's same with Indians. When they first start seeing white people coming, the blue coats coming, and they start killing them, they thought that was it. Finally more would come, and more would come, and more in stockades. They finally sent scouts back to see how far they were. They said, well, the further east you go, they're just blue with blue coats. It's inevitable that something's going to happen, and we have to prepare for it. Chief Moses' name was Usham. They couldn't say Chief Moses' Indian name, so they called him Moses. He made an agreement, and he decided that he would come on the Colville Reservation. They had to swim their horses to get over here. His son drowned. His only son drowned in the Columbia River while he was coming into the reservation. And so when he came here, he said he wouldn't move anymore. He says, my father-in-law was a big chief. They shot him in the back. My brother-in-law was the next line in chief for the Yakimos. Great warrior, well respected by Indian people. They hung him in Hangman Creek. I've negotiated and negotiated. It seems like there's just nothing more I can do. These stories were told to me by my mother, his grandchild, by his wife, Mary Moses. Oh, Mary Moses was a Yakima Indian. Her father was Auchai. He was chief of the Yakimas. She raised me because my mother in turn more or less turned me over to Mary Moses at an early age to be her companion. So we rode and we'd go into the mountains and she'd pick huckleberries, or I'd go with her and we'd help pick moss. But every day I guess she told us some kind of a legend. She used to talk about my mother's childhood. She'd talk about Chief Moses and the sorrow. She really must have loved the man because she used to talk and sometimes cry, just thinking about the things that he went through and how they hid so many times and where he'd tell them to hide out. Generally, you don't tell young children, but she wanted me to know somehow how much suffering had happened before we got a home base. I was only about 2 years old when my father died. In this very home that he built, we decided we wanted to come here because there was always so much to eat here. When the garden was early and it was the last to freeze in the fall, we had plenty to eat, and all we was thinking of our stomach, and there was a big barn there to keep our horses. So we just packed up and put Mary Moses in the hay rack and moved up here. She was probably around 100 years old. We lived in this house, we cleaned it up, and we were happy because, you know, my father put the nails into the walls of this building, and we didn't have him anymore, and it meant a great deal to us. We were very happy here. Always my childhood happiest memories are riding, and we all rode. My mother rode. We broke horses. In that big barn there was a big corral. My big brother would bring the wild horses in and we'd tie them up. In a few days we'd have a broken horse. But I've very few memories of ever hitting the ground. Let's put it that way. But I just love to ride. Getting married, well, it took about 3 years to get to the stage of getting married. At that time, when you got married, you lived at home with parents. But we wanted to break away from that and live alone, and my mother felt that was the best way, to make a go of a marriage, to get the man to start supporting his wife. She came up here with us, and we cleaned it up, fixed furniture, built our own bed, got straw, and I had a down mattress, and we had it all fixed up. I hadn't seen this place for, oh, goodness, quite a few years. I lost my husband about 17 years ago. My mother 17 years ago. And when I came around, of course, just like seeing them again, I really felt very sad. Because we had so many happy times here. We'd think, oh, aren't we happy? Aren't we glad? Aren't we proud we're Indians? I think God was good to us and made us Indians. Our culture here was practically gone. We used to have our celebration from Christmas to New Year's. That whole week, every night, we'd go to the Longhouse and war dance. They played stick game, they war danced, they raced horses, foot race, they played lacrosse, I guess. Well, festivals are for what the land produces. If it produces salmon, we have a great time. And if we've had a dry season, we've had rain, if it makes us happy, then we want to show our happiness by dancing and enjoying it. We love to celebrate so we could visit, laugh, and enjoy one another. And years ago, they'd say, well, I know we'll have some new marriages, from here. There'd be romancing. So sure enough, there would be. They'll say, well, so-and-so got a new son-in-law from the celebration. An Indian song is not anything that anybody could compose. It's not composed. When there is a word, it has a very deep meaning, and you have to respect what it means, what its intent is. I think the youngsters are proud of being an Indian and want to learn what they have lost. Many are very bitter because they can't speak their language, because they're made to be ashamed of their dancing, and they never even participated. They never had the chance to because of being ridiculed. I think a lot of this came about because of ending of the identity of an Indian, termination. Termination is something that no Indian should ever dream about. That means the end of the trust responsible of the United States. It gives up all the responsibilities it had. The trust land, this is our land, would become public lands. And that's what termination means. It just, we give that up so it can be bought up. Indian doesn't have all that money, so we'd lose everything. This reservation was set aside in 1872 as a Colville Indian reservation for all Indians. No matter what Indian you were, they put the Coeur d'Alenes on this reservation, they put the Spokanes on this reservation. They didn't negotiate with nobody. They just told Indians to come on this reservation and they put them here. We didn't even know that we were to give any kind of permission or anything. We were so used to having people just do what they wanted with our land and anything. Grand Coulee Dam, Joseph Dam, all the dams weren't by our request. All the comforts don't come to the reservation. It goes away from the reservation. So we pay the highest price for electricity. We have no irrigation projects. We have not one water. It destroyed all our salmon, our main staple of food. They never replaced it with nothing else. So termination is giving up all your Indian heritage, your whole rights, everything. It's giving your eagle feather away. At that time, I came into the picture. I decided to fight, not give up like most of the people were, to retain the reservation. So then I started going to Washington. I have a few head of cattle, and I'd sell some and go in and lobby. Go to the senators, go to the congressmen, and ask them not to terminate us. We were not ready. So I worked with them to get their land back. Now they have their land back, and I know those people will never ask for termination again. We decide where our land goes. We have an executive order setting that reservation aside for our use, and it's up to us to decide how it's to be used. And he has passed a number of Indian bills, and he does have a lot of power. But to make that cycle in tribal government was pretty hard. And then we got a constitution to have an election like you people have, your elections. And that's how the tribal council came into being, and not the chiefs any longer. And that change was a little bit hard too, because the chiefs are so used to making decisions. They were judges sitting on the bench on law and order. And then you carry on business the white man's way. It had to be necessary for us to have the voice that would be heard back into the government, the United States government. I think it's worth it because this governing body here protects this land now. From that time on, this council has been so busy in trying to develop this reservation. Almost all the new buildings here have been constructed since 1970. That Indian Action building that you see there was the first development we've had on this reservation at any time since the agency was built. But everybody wanted near the road so that they would know that the Colville Indians were going to live on. We are Indians. We are American Indians, Native American Indians, and we don't want to be anything else. If they took that unique Indian recognition away from us and made us this ordinary American citizen, would not take away the Indian in us. We'd still feel the same way. We'd still feel lonely when we looked across the river to see our old country, because our people talked about it. We have people buried over there, and you just can't erase it. It's always there, and it's going to be pretty hard to ever give up. I guess it's pretty near like Earth. We're so close to it. We're close to nature itself. And we just can't seem to fall in line with the white person's thoughts that we should blend in with the rest of the civilized people. We're a separate people, regardless of what people do to us. It doesn't part from you. I think what Moses left me is take land before you ever take money. Because if you have land, you are somebody. You have identification. People respect you if you have someplace that you can call your own. And this is our own. 6,000 of us call the Colville Reservation our own right now. As long as Chief Moses said he wouldn't give up this land, I know as long as I live, I will never give up this land.